Welcome to Worship, Marian, and happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to you too, Kat.
Thank you. Who's going to light our chalice today?
Since today is Mother's Day, we will have many moms helping us out, starting with Mara and her family, including her mom.
Wonderful.
We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the Church of the open mind, loving heart, and the helping hands. Yay!
Nailed it!
Let's sing the hymn that we're learning this month. I've got peace like a river.
Great. We learned the first verse last week, and this week we'll add the second, which is I've got joy like a fountain.
Let's sing along with Raina and her mom, Jenna.
Great. And if you want, you can do the motions too.
Won't you sing with us?
I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul.
I am so excited for what's in the Wonder Box this week.
My guess is a book, since our theme this month is story.
Yes, it has to be a book. Let's see.
This is a ball. This is not a book.
Are there any words on it? Are you positive it isn't a book?
Yeah, there are no words. I just wish we knew its story. Objects without stories are kind of meaningless.
Yeah. If only there were a storyteller to tell us what this means.
Did someone call for a storyteller?
Yay! It's storyteller Donna Washington.
Hi, Donna. I'm so glad you're here. Do you know what this golden ball is doing in the Wonder Box?
Actually, I know a story about a golden ball. It goes like this. There was once a king, and he had a lot of advisors. He was a good king. He was a young king. He was a strong king, and he loved being king. He got to make pronouncements. He got to reign over his people, and he got to do good things. He had very wise advisors, like I said, and they told him the things he needed to do. Now, he was always asking them, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Because that's what advisors are for. They're supposed to tell you what they think. And sometimes they had answers right away, and sometimes they had to think about it before they came up with answers. Well, the king didn't like it when they had to think about it and go away, because then he didn't know what to do. And he liked everyone to know he was a good king. And good kings are supposed to have answers. Well, one day he was having dinner with his advisors, and he realized that lots of them had parents there. Now, his parents were not there anymore. That's why he was the king. You can only be the king after your father leaves you the kingdom. But he was noticing that his advisors, instead of spending time staring at him and telling him what they thought, they were spending a lot of time taking care of their parents. Their parents were older, you see, and a lot of times they had trouble getting the spoons to their mouths because their hands shook, or sometimes they got confused and the advisors had to work with them. And well, the king didn't like it. He thought, if my advisors didn't have all of these old, useless people hanging around, taking up space, why, they could spend more time talking to me and telling me what needs to happen. And so the next day, the king made a decree. He said, from here on out, when you get elderly, when you cannot hold your spoons properly, if you get confused, or if you cannot work as hard as you used to, from here on out, when you reach that point in your life, you shall be taken up into the mountains and left to fend for yourself. That way, all the people in the kingdom will be able to work harder. We'll be more productive. Well, there were a lot of people in the kingdom who were older, who couldn't work as hard as they used to, some of whom were very frail. And overnight, they all disappeared. The king went out onto his balcony, rode his horse through the town. He looked around. He didn't see any old people. He was very pleased. Now, sometimes his advisors still said, well, let me think about it for a minute, and they would leave. But sometimes they never came up with an answer. And the king didn't like that at all, and he didn't understand why it was happening. These men he'd always thought of as good advisors, while they were giving him, well, not great advice anymore. And he didn't know why. He thought, I bet the answer is I need better advisors. I will have to come up with a test to figure out how to get better advisors. Ha, I know. In the courtyard of the castle, there was a huge, beautiful, still pool. The water was so clear, you could see all the way to the bottom of it. And there were fish in that pool, swimming around here and there. And all around the pool were beautiful trees. It was a place to come and reflect quietly. And even though it was in the palace, people were allowed to come and sit quietly by the reflecting pool. Well, the king announced a contest. He was really looking for advisors, but not everyone wants to advise the king, because sometimes, if your advice isn't good, the king might get mad. So he thought, I just need to find someone who's very smart, very wise, and then I will just tell them they are my advisor. And so he announced this contest. He said to them, I'm going to take a golden ball and drop it into the pool of contemplation in my courtyard. And whoever can get the ball out of the pool, whoever can figure out how to do that, why, they will get one wish. I will grant them any wish they like. Well, when everyone heard that, the next day they came to the king's castle. They came to the courtyard. They looked into the pool. Sure enough, there was a beautiful golden ball right down in the middle of the pool. And the first person said, I know how to get it out, Your Majesty. And he said, well, how shall we get it out? And he said, get a net, drop it into the pool, and bring up the ball. Well, the king said, we will try that. And they tried it, supposedly. Of course, everyone laughed, and the king supposedly tried that. And the next day he said, it didn't work. The ball did not come out. I need another idea. Well, they came up with ideas. Someone thought tying a pail to a rope and dropping it down and scooping up the ball. That didn't work. Some person thought a big stick to try to get the ball out. They came up with all sorts of ideas, but none of them worked. Everyone began to think, it's a magic ball. A magic ball. How would you get a magic ball out of a pond? Well, no one had any idea how to do that. Time went on, the king became very concerned. Maybe there were no wise people at all in his kingdom. Well, there was one young lady. Her name was Amaya. And Amaya, well, she'd gone to the courtyard with everyone else and looked into the pool because she was worried. You see, Amaya had a mother, and the two of them had been working together, harvesting vegetables and selling them at the market for years. But lately, Amaya had noticed that her mother was having trouble keeping up in the garden, that she got tired more quickly, and that she went to sleep earlier and she got up a little later. And then recently she'd noticed that as her mother was eating, sometimes her hands shook. And that morning, that very morning, her mother had said to her, Amaya, you have been putting off what you know you must do. The king has given a decree. You must take me up into the mountains and leave me. And Amaya said, I won't do that. I have a plan. You see, Amaya, when her mother was sleeping, had been working to dig out a hole, a tunnel below their cellar. And their cellars where they kept wine, and they kept fermenting cabbage, because in the wintertime they ate that. And they kept jars of vegetables where they pickled vegetables. Back in the old days, people didn't have refrigerators. So the way that they preserved things was they pickled them, like putting them in vinegar or wine. And below the cellar, she had dug a small chamber. And in that chamber, she'd put a bed and a lamp. And she said, I'm going to put you down there during the day. And at night, when everyone's asleep, I'll bring you out. Well, that's what she did. She'd hidden her mother under the cellar. And for days and days, she tried to think of some way to get that golden ball out of the pool. Because her wish, the one thing she was going to ask of the king, was that she be allowed to let her old mother stay in the house. And every day Amaya went and looked at that pool and tried to think of some way to get that magic ball out of the pool. And she couldn't think of anything else. Nets, buckets, nobody could think of anything. Well, weeks passed and then months. And one night, Amaya came down to see her mother, and her mother was waiting for her. And as she brought her mother upstairs and they spent some time together, her mother said, Amaya, what is wrong? You look very sad. If I am a burden, you're not a burden. It's just that I want to find a way to get that ball out of the pool, but how do you get a magic ball out of a pool? And her mother said, are you sure it's magic? Well, it must be. Nets can't bring it out. Sticks can't bring it out. Pails can't bring it out. It must be magic. Her mother said, it's in the reflecting pool. Yes, the reflecting pool in the courtyard. Huh? I know how to get the ball out of the pool. Well, when she gave Amaya the answer, then Maya just laughed. She said, are you sure? Yes, I'm pretty sure. Well, the next day, Amaya presented herself to the king. Now, none of the women had tried to get it out. All the men had ideas, and the women had hung back, and that's how it was often in this kingdom. And so when Amaya came forward and said, I know how to get the ball out of the pool, the king was surprised. A woman. Well, how will you do it then? We've tried nets and buckets and sticks. We've tried big spoons. How shall you get it out? She said, watch. And instead of going into the pool, Amaya went around the pool and climbed up one of the trees, the one that went far out over the pool with thick leaves. She climbed the branch that went out over the pool, and there, above the pool, was the golden ball. And she pulled the ball down out of the branches. And as soon as she did that, of course, there was no more reflection in the water. And she handed the ball to the king. And the king was amazed. He said, you are the wisest person in my kingdom? How on earth did you figure this out? And she said, first, I'm going to ask for my wish. And the king said, well, what is it? She said, I want my mother, my old mother, to be able to stay in the kingdom and live in my home as long as she lives for the rest of her days. And the king said, but I thought she was in the mountains. You have to grant my wish. And the king said, very well. Now, tell me how you figured this out. My mother told me. I didn't know. She's the one who knew. And the king's eyes opened wide. And then he looked at his advisors and he realized something. All the time they were thinking about it and coming back with answers, they could have been asking their parents or anyone else old in the kingdom who knew something about life. And the king realized he had been a fool. and he reversed his decree. I hereby decree that all the people in my kingdom, old or young, are welcome here to share their gifts with everyone. And then something else happened. All the older people, well, that had supposedly been taken up into the mountains and left. They'd been hidden all over the place. They were hidden in caves. Some of them were hidden in cellars. Some of them were actually hidden up in the mountains. And people brought all of their fathers and mothers and grandparents back to live with them. And then the king felt really foolish indeed. He learned a thing or two. Everyone has something to contribute. Everyone. Because when we work together, we can all find the golden balls, the truth and the joy inside of each and every one of us.
Wow, what a wonderful story.
You have a golden ball too? I guess we'll never know which one is real and which one is the reflection. This golden ball or that golden ball, it means so much more now that we know the story behind it.
And that story isn't just about a golden ball and its reflection. We also learned about speaking truth to power.
And the wisdom of elders, especially mothers.
And the importance of caring for our family.
And the ingenuity of women and girls.
That's a way bigger story than would have fit on a small golden ball.
I love that about stories. Donna, what do you love about stories?
What I love about stories is that they bring people together in community and help us see each other in new ways.
I also love stories because they can be shared. And if you and I have heard the same story, then we know something together. It becomes a common text.
Like our chalice extinguishing words.
Ah, I know those words too.
Let's say them together and extinguish the chalice.
We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of truth.
The warmth of community.
or the fire of commitment.
These we carry in our hearts.
Until we are together again.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you for having me.